listener production.
Hello, welcome to The Briefing. I'm Sasha Barbagat. Do you collect frequent flyer points or use flybys or everyday rewards cards at the supermarket checkout? If you do, there's a good chance that if you have a credit card, a loyalty card, or are even buying certain products or services regularly, you are racking up frequent flyers without meaning to. But is collecting these points really worth it?
It's a game that they've designed that we play in, and we hope that we can have good strategies that we win too.
In the second half of this episode, we dive deep into whether these programs actually save you money, the top strategies to get the most out of them, and whether they're worth the downsides. First though, it is headlines time with Chris Spiru on Thursday, February 6.
Morning, Sash. Morning, everybody. The federal government has agreed to the coalition's demands to introduce mandatory minimum jail sentences for terror crimes and displaying hate symbols. It's a move clearly in response to increasing pressure on Labor to do more about tackling anti-Semitism after a rise in attacks in recent months, including the firebombing of a synagogue in Melbourne in December and the discovery of a caravan filled with explosives in Sydney last month. Under the amendments to the hate crimes bill, those found guilty of terror offences could face a minimum of 6 years in prison. The changes would also create 3-year minimums for financing terrorism and 1 year for displaying hate symbols, which includes things like performing a Nazi salute. In a late-night debate yesterday, Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke described them as the toughest laws Australia has ever had against hate crimes.
Yeah, the coalition, while supportive of the move in general, has been critical that it's taken so long. As you said, Chris, there has been a lot of pressure on Labor to do more, to be seen to do more. Greens leader Adam Bandt, meantime, has hit out at the amendments, saying while they support the original bill, they do have real concerns about the minimum sentences, describing them as utterly unnecessary. Now, it is important to note as well, Labor's national platform does oppose minimum mandatory sentencing, claiming it undermines the independence of the judiciary, can lead to unjust outcomes and often is discriminatory in practice. Now, yeah, there is a lot of criticism in general of mandatory sentences, so it's not surprising that the Greens have taken that position. Yesterday as well, we saw New South Wales come out with some tough new hate crime laws. They'll include 2 years jail for racial hatred offences, and the Premier there says they are needed to stop the attacks, which he's referring to anti-Semitic attacks, and will apply to anyone preying on any person of any religion.
We turn now to Donald Trump's comments about taking over Gaza, levelling it, and turning it into the Riviera of the Middle East, and how the world has reacted to that astounding announcement, Sash. To quickly recap, the US President and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a joint press conference yesterday to announce the move.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site, and get rid of the destroyed buildings.
Trump spoke about potentially using military force to achieve it, resettling Palestinians in other Arab countries, and opening the Strip to the world's people. It's unclear exactly who that means.
The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site.
His words have sparked condemnation the world over, but let's start in Australia, where both sides of the political spectrum have reiterated the position of wanting a two-state solution.
Australia's position is the same as it was this morning, as it was last year, and it was 10 years ago, and it was under the Howard government. The Australian government support, on a bipartisan basis, a two-state solution in the Middle East.
We support a negotiated two-state solution between Palestinians and Israelis.
You heard there first from Anthony Albanese, then Liberal Senator Dave Sharma, both of which have made their party's position clear yesterday afternoon.
Despite this immediate response, it is a tough line for Australia to walk because we don't want to upset the US, which is our most powerful ally. So Albo, while he had that line about wanting a two-state solution, repeatedly then, after he was asked again and again about Trump's comments said, I'm not going to provide a running commentary every day of everything that the US president says. So he's not wanting to be too vocal about it, but did reiterate Australia's position. Look, around the world, we heard from Jordan and Egypt, which were floated by Trump as possible locations to resettle Palestinians from Gaza. Both countries vehemently shut down the suggestion. Similarly, the UK, France, Germany, Spain, even Russia and China were all quick to shoot down the US's plan and called for a two-state solution. The UN Human Rights Office has also spoken out, saying the move would breach international law and that any forcible transfer in or deportation of people from occupied territory is strictly prohibited.
Yeah, and a lot of experts are coming out to say that this is akin to ethnic cleansing. That's a position that Greg Barton took, someone we spoke to yesterday in our special breaking news episode. The link to that will be in the description. Meantime, Gazans have reacted with anger towards Trump's comments as hundreds of thousands continue to return to their destroyed homes as the ceasefire holds. Look, as to what happens next, that's really, really unclear. But as I mentioned, you can hop back to yesterday's episode. We have a pretty good explainer as to what all this could mean.
Also, it's worth making the point that, how serious Trump is about this is a question as well. Because as we saw with the tariffs, he came hard and he said 25% on Canada and Mexico. Canada and Mexico both said, oh yeah, here's our retaliatory tariffs, but they didn't want that. So they then negotiated and Trump got what he wanted. So we're seeing this kind of business move from Trump where he's going really high, hoping that the opposition's coming down a little bit lower to what he actually wants. So there is this line that I'm hearing a lot of experts say, including Greg Barton in yesterday's chat, which is we should take his comments seriously but not literally. We don't necessarily know that he's going to follow through on these plans, and they are batshit, to put it politely. And look, it's worth mentioning as well, the US is unlikely to have much support for this move. We know Israel's in favour. Benjamin Netanyahu sat next to him for that press conference and seemed very on board with the idea, but no one else has come out in support of this at this stage.
To the UK now, where Sam Kerr's trial for racial harassment is continuing, the Matilda star taking to the stand. To recap, she's accused of the aggravated racial harassment of a police officer in London after calling him stupid and white following a night out in January 2023. She'd been out drinking with her partner when they got into an altercation with a taxi driver who drove them to Twickenham police station. It was there that the footballer got into a confrontation with the officer.
So overnight, the court has heard audio from Kerr's police interview, during which she was played back body cam footage of the comments she made when she called him stupid and white.
I was obviously intoxicated and I shouldn't have been so front-footed.
So while being questioned on the stand, the 31-year-old admitted she and her partner were terrified that they were being kidnapped by the taxi driver. Kerr faces 26 weeks in prison if she's found guilty. The trial continues.
And if you're listening to us right now to kick off your day, are you feeling very happy? I'm hoping the answer is yes, because you're listening to us. But researchers from the University College London, which analysed data from almost 50,000 people over 2 years, found that most people wake up in the morning feeling best, with the lowest levels of loneliness, depression and anxiety.
Yeah, maybe it takes the rest of the day to build up those awful feelings. But it also found people are happier and more satisfied with life on Mondays and Fridays than they are on Sundays.
Mondays I call BS on. Who's feeling bright and sparkly on a Monday morning?
Well, part of me thinks it's like the start. We humans love to mark milestones. So the start of a new week, it's like, okay, here we go. And you might not be very conscious of the fact that you're feeling that way as such, but it would inevitably kind of flow through to the rest of your feelings, I suppose, for the rest of the day, where you go, oh, okay, it's a new day, it's a new week, here we go, I'm here. I totally agree with the Sunday scaries, though. I'm a big sufferer of the Sunday scaries.
Yeah, and it's so funny because this is a conversation I had with Alexis Fernandez-Prakes at the beginning of the year. That episode's titled How to Retrain Your Brain. I'll pop that in the show notes. I actually asked her this question as well about living for the weekends, which is something I do. I live for the weekends, and there's strategies and things you can do to make yourself look forward to the weekdays.
Okay.
So you can actually cancel your Sunday scaries. You have to listen to that episode to find out how.
I'm going to go into the show notes as soon as this is published and I'm going to click it and I'm going to listen to it while I eat my breakfast.
Oh, gosh.
Chris, thank you so much. Next up, we are getting into a deep dive looking at loyalty programs. I'm talking flybys, I'm talking everyday rewards, and whether getting frequent flyer points and collecting them on a credit card or through a loyalty program is actually worth it.
Hey, Bension here. Are frequent flyer programs and supermarket loyalty programs a scam? Here's my question. If these airlines and big supermarket chains are constantly pressuring us to join up, can that really be in our best interests? Why would these businesses want us to save money on flights and groceries that they're selling? Well, the man you're about to meet argues these programs are not a scam, and you can make serious savings on, for example, business class flights to Europe. But you have to be smart about it, you have to have a goal, and you have to have the right strategy, otherwise there's no point. Stephen Huey is the self-described points whisperer and founder of frequent flyer consultancy iFlyFlat. Stephen, sell it to me. Why should I be collecting frequent flyer points?
Because it's the cheapest way to fly. And it's the cheapest way to fly business or first class without having to pay full price. So imagine a business class flight to London or Europe will cost about $12,000 or $15,000 to buy with money. With points, well, you can probably do that for about $2,000 return. So significantly cheaper. And first class, it would typically cost between $15,000 and $20,000 per ticket. You can also do that for between $2,000 and $3,000 on points, just paying for the fees and taxes. So when you look at those numbers, flying for the price of economy, flying flat becomes very attractive.
How frequent a flyer do I have to be for it to be worth joining?
Well, actually, the old ways of earning points was through flying. And of course, it's called a frequent flyer program, so it all makes sense. But actually, these days, you don't actually earn many points by flying. These days, most people earn their points by spending. And when I mean spending, it's about earning points on your credit cards. So most people actually earn their points paying bills these days and then using those points to pay for the flight. So it sounds a bit weird. It's actually more of a frequent spending program these days than a frequent flyer program.
I don't have a frequent flyer point membership because I always catch the cheapest possible airfare. Am I an idiot?
No, there's a different strategy around it. It all comes down to how many flights you're going to fly. Because if you're not going to fly many flights, then you're not going to be in a position to earn enough points to make it worthwhile. In that case, then you definitely should just pick the lowest fare of the day, pick whichever flight suits your needs, because there's no point collecting points if your points are not going to add up to a usable amount that can be utilised. Then you might as well just not earn any points, because earning 5,000 points towards something you can't use is the same as earning zero.
Can I just give you an example for a second? If I wanted to fly from Melbourne to Adelaide and back next weekend, I would be spending $471 buying the cheapest tickets. It would cost an extra $124 to upgrade to the kind of tickets that would mean I would get Qantas points at all from that. Are the points that I would earn from that return trip worth more than the $124 extra that I would be paying?
Well, no, not in isolation. But if you are someone who does that trip often, then your points will add up towards roughly the number is, last calculated, it's about 1 in 10. So it's like a coffee card type idea. If you fly that same route 10 times, you roughly earn enough points to get one free flight on that same route. But if you're not going to fly all the time on the same airline, then the key is actually you have to supplement your points earning from other sources. So if you're completely relying on earning points from flying, it's going to take you forever. But if you're combining your points from, say, supermarkets or credit cards, then all the points act together will get you enough for a free flight.
If you're starting from nothing, which I would be, where do you start? Like, what is a typical, this is the frequent flyer points strategy for a regular person to use if they wanted to get them to add up?
It's about knowing how many points you need to fly somewhere. first. So on each of the airlines, they have a calculator. So for example, Qantas has a calculator. You just Google, say, Qantas points calculator. Virgin has one. Just Google Virgin points calculator. So for example, Sydney to Melbourne currently is 8,000 Qantas points. Mm-hmm. Once you know it's 8,000 Qantas points, then you know what effort you need to go into in collecting the 8,000 points.
Are there downsides to frequent flyer programs?
There are downsides if you're just really just chasing points and you're spending more than you're going to spend. And it's all about just being smart at how do you get rewarded from the program. So it's a game that they've designed that we play in, and we hope that we can have good strategies that we win too. The people that win are people who do stuff that they would do anyway. They will buy groceries that will spend anyway. They will fill up petrol that they're going to spend anyway. And then just by the choice of who you shop with, you can decide what type of frequent flyer points you can earn. So take an example, supermarkets, if you go to Coles to earn flybuys, those points can be converted to Virgin points. But if you go to Woolworths, you can convert those points to Qantas points. So therefore, if you're someone who lives, say, close to your Coles, well, then naturally you're probably going to spend more money at Coles than Woolworths. So then that already will set your path down towards a Virgin path slightly more than the Qantas path, because you're not going to go out of your way in your everyday activities to start earning points elsewhere, unless you have a very specific reason to do that.
Mm-hmm. If you use a rewards card or a Flybuys card at the supermarket, as you mentioned, that allows Coles or Woolworths to track people's spending. Does that apply in the same way to frequent flyer programs from the airlines, or is it different because the airlines already know exactly where and when individuals are flying?
I guess by the use of the membership number, they can then track more accurately the flights you're taking and when. But what these airlines and all these companies do, they get all the data from a whole heap of people, thousands, tens of thousands of people, to generate the insights. So it's got to the point where if you don't participate, it makes no difference. It only matters if like hundreds of thousands of people don't participate. Then they lose the richness of the data.
But in terms of data privacy, like if you're going to link your supermarket spending to your frequent flyer program, is it reasonable for someone to be concerned that Coles just knows every time that they buy a banana, or does that just not matter?
In my view, it doesn't matter too much because it seems to be more helpful than harming. So right now, if you buy things through the app, it will generate a list for you of all the common things that you would buy, and then you can just filter by that to see if there's a price discount on those items. So if you're I always feel like if you're smart at using it, you can use it to your advantage rather than sort of thinking that, well, they got more data, so therefore they're going to charge me more money for that can of corn. I very much doubt it. I think more likely if you can utilize the system for your benefit, get the system to notify you when that can of corn is on sale, and then you buy it then, and you hopefully may never ever pay full price. Then you're winning the system.
Does Qantas or Virgin have the better frequent flyer program, or also are there other frequent flyer programs that you might consider joining?
There's a whole heap of frequent flyer programs. The first question is, where do you want to go? And then depending on where you want to go, you've got to figure out which airline will take you there. So, for example, if you're going to go to Bali, of course, Qantas and Virgin both fly there. And then the next decision is, well, how many points does each carrier cost me? So Qantas might cost X number of points and Virgin might cost a little bit less. So once you know that Virgin costs less and that you're in a scenario where you can potentially be closer to Coles, closer to 7-Eleven, and you can earn more Virgin points, then that's the path you head up. Why would you pick an airline that charges you more points? They're not. But then there's other airlines like Singapore Airlines, Emirates, Cathay Pacific, Qatar. So every single airline has their own points program. And the time to consider those ones is that if you're in the position to earn points, enough points to fly with them. So, for example, businesses, so which is our target market, will help businesses earn points. So they spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars paying bills, paying wages to earn points. In those scenarios, then you can start to choose, I'm going to start earning points to Singapore because you'll be able to earn, say, the 300,000 points needed to book a business class flight to Europe. But if you are not going to be able to earn in that range, then earning 20,000 points towards Singapore Airlines is not going to be useful because you need 300,000 points to redeem a business seat.
If I'm starting from the start and I haven't done anything with frequent flyer points before, what are your top tips to get the most out of it?
Yeah, number one is speak to some friends. The magic thing about people who love points is they love to share their knowledge around points. And the key thing comes down to your very fair question, why bother with points? Because those people would have flown business class on points and go, wow, this is a $12,000 ticket and I'm flying for less than $2,000. That's a bloody good deal. Then at least you have an ally and someone you can talk to. But I think always number one is have a think about where you want to go and see how many points Qantas charges to fly there, Virgin flies there or not, Singapore, for example. And then the second step is, well, in your habits, see where you shop and see which points partners they link to. And then the third is if you're open to your credit cards and you're good at using credit cards and paying off the bill in full each month, then pick a credit card that earns points into that program. So you see how this is like it's like working backwards from your goal and then working backwards to which airlines flies there, how many points, and then picking a credit card that earns those points. That's actually the opposite of what most people do. Most people just get a card, earn the points, and then see what happens later. In that case, then you're just hoping for the best. That never produces great results.
All in all, are frequent flyer programs worth it?
I think very much worth it, but you have to do it with a plan. If you use frequent flyer programs as a plan, you can really get the riches and the rewards out of it. But if you do it unplanned and random, then you might get a reward once in a while, but you don't know how you got there. Yes, you can get heaps of rewards with a plan, but without a plan, then that's luck.
Well, Steve Huey, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thank you very much for having me and talking about points, my favourite subject in the world.
Stephen Huey there. He's the points whisperer and founder of I Fly Flat. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Briefing. That's it for now. Before you go though, we would love it if you could share this app with someone you think might enjoy it. It's a really easy way you can support us and all we do here at The Briefing. So is sharing our social posts. Check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast and on TikTok and YouTube. Just search Listener Newsroom. I'm Bension Siebert. Catch you next time.
Listener.